will start with resective surgeries and bone surgeries, osseous surgeries in this class. So to start with, we'll start with resective osseous surgeries. The learning outcomes are classify osseous surgery, explain various terminologies used in resective osseous surgery, list 4 steps in osseous resective surgery, describe the indication and outcome of resective osseous surgery, give examples for the modifications in resective osseous surgery. Osseous surgeries have been defined as that part of the periodontal surgery which deals with the modification of bony support of the teeth or a supporting alveolar bone. Whatever modifications done to the supporting alveolar bone by surgery is called as osseous surgeries, whether it is an resective surgery or a regenerative surgery. So whatever modifications done to the osseous bone is called as osseous surgeries. Normally in health, the bony contour mimics the cemento-enamel junction contour. So there is a contour where the cemento-enamel junction runs apically on the facial and lingual aspect and more coronally on the interproximal region. So the interproximal bone is more coronal compared to the facial and lingual palatal bone. That is what the normal bony architecture or a positive architecture. What happens during this is there is a bone loss going to happen in the interproximal region which results in the interproximal bone to dip down to more apical position compared to the facial and lingual bone. So the interproximal bone is going to go more apical to the facial and lingual bone. What happens when there is a change in the bony contour? There will be more space for the food to get lodged in the interproximal region. So there will be food lodgement which results in more and more amount of bone loss and more deep pocket formation happens in a negative architecture. So our idea of doing a resective surgery is to bring back this negative architecture to a positive architecture which is more feasible for the patient to maintain. To start a resective osseous surgery, radiographs going to help us in determining the type of bone loss, evaluating the bone loss and the type of surgery we are going to plan. Basically, the radiographs going to help us in identifying the bone margins on the mesial and distal aspect of the tooth in relation to the cemento-enamel junction. Normally, the bone will be 1 to 2 millimeter apical to the cemento-enamel junction in the interproximal region in a normal healthy environment. When there is a disease, the bone will go more further apical. So you can see more bone loss. The distance between the crest of alveolar bone and the cemento-enamel junction will be increased. There will be variations in the crestal density of the interproximal bone. In case of partial bone loss, you can see a partial radiolucency or the density difference in the density of the interproximal bone. Either absence of vertical bone loss can be identified with the help of a radiograph. You can identify a furcation radiolucency which shows the furcation involvement. You can identify the length and shape of the root, crown to root ratio, crown contours, overhanging restorations, presence of calculus in the interproximal region, impacted, missing or tilted or drifted tooth or over erupted tooth, and bony pathologies can be identified with the help of a radiograph. Normally, in bone loss, the most common X-ray findings we will see is either an interproximal crater where there is a partial radiolucency seen on the interproximal region or a funnel-shaped defect or a hemiseptal defect. Hemiseptal defect is a complete radiolucency seen on the interproximal region. So this is a radiograph showing a partial radiolucency, angular radiolucency seen on the distal aspect of a second molar. So you can visualize the partial radiolucency, angular radiolucency, which shows a crater or an intrabony defect on the distal aspect of the tooth. Coming on to the different terminologies used in osseous surgeries. So periodontal surgery, the osseous surgery is the first terminology where there is a modification to the supporting alveolar bone is done, is called as osseous surgery. So resective osseous surgery is the process of removal of this supporting alveolar bone. It can be done either by osteoplasty or osteectomy. Osteoplasty is reshaping of this alveolar process to achieve a more physiological form without removal of this supporting alveolar bone, whereas osteectomy is excision of this supporting alveolar bone to recontour the bone to a positive architecture. So osseous resective surgery is basically a combination of both osteoplasty and osteectomy. So osseous surgeries are basically classified into subtractive and additive, either resective osseous surgery or regenerative osseous surgery. So we'll see only the resective osseous surgery in this class. So the rationale of osseous surgery is to remove the bone so that to bring back the contour to a more physiological or a positive architecture so that the patient can able to maintain the oral hygiene. The periodontitis causes various degree of destructions to the marginal alveolar bone, which results in irregular bone architecture or inconsistent bony surface. So the idea is to remove this osseous defect and create a physiological contour. So the physiological contour will mimic the normal architecture of the gingiva so that the patient can able to maintain the oral hygiene. So this pictorial representation shows that in a normal healthy state, the bone is more coronal in the interproximal region compared to the facial and lingual region. So this is a normal architecture. A scalloped contour will be seen in the healthy gingiva. During disease, what happens? There will be a bone loss in the interproximal region, which results in irregular bone in the interproximal region. So the idea of resective surgery is to make it either flat or recontour it to a positive architecture. That is what the main idea of doing a resective osseous surgery. So we are going to remove this part of bone. The picture 4 will show you the facial and lingual bone has been removed to reshape to the more flat or a positive architecture. So procedures to correct these osseous defects by osteoplasty and osteectomy. We have already seen what is osteoplasty and what is osteectomy. Osteoplasty, in which the periodontal pocket is eliminated by reshaping the bony architecture and bring back to the physiological contour of the tooth. Whereas osteectomy is that part of the osseous surgery where the attached part or an supporting alveolar bone is being removed to eliminate the periodontal pocket. Coming on to the indications when we will do resective surgeries. The recontouring of the bone that forms the outer wall of the pocket to prevent recurrence of the pocket and to reshape the alveolar crest to establish a normal parabolic contour. So the indication for osteoplasty in case of buccal or lingual bony ledges, palatal tori or buccal tori, intrabony defects associated with tilted molar, shallow buccal or lingual intrabony defects, buttressing bone formations. In all such cases, we will do osteoplasty. Osteectomy, we are going to do it in intrabony defects. Intrabony pockets not amendable to reattachment procedures where the intrabony pocket cannot be regenerated using a regenerative osseous surgery. Those are the indications for resective osseous surgery. Contraindications. So whenever the site is possible for regeneration, it is contraindicated for resective. So for example, a deep osseous crater or a three-wall osseous defect where the graft material can be contained and can be regenerated, we cannot perform a resective surgery. We can perform a regenerative surgery. So on a moderate to deep circumferential defect and a bony defect situated on the buccal aspect of last or distal molar associated with the external oblique ridge. In these cases, we can able to regenerate the bone which has been lost, because the containment of the graft can be happen in these situations. So these are contraindicated for resective surgeries. The other contraindication for resective surgery is plaque control. If the patient is a non-compliance patient and patient shows an inadequate plaque control measures, the patient should be placed under supportive periodontal therapy until the patient becomes compliant and patient can able to maintain a plaque control. Then only we can able to do a osseous surgical procedures. So what is the endpoint or outcome of this surgery? The endpoint of the resective osseous surgery is to reduce the probing pocket depth and bring back the gingival tissue to a more physiological contour where the patient can able to maintain the oral hygiene. So the endpoint of osseous resective surgery are minimal probing depth and the gingival tissue morphology that enhances good self-performance, oral hygiene and periodontal health. So when it comes to osteoplasty, the endpoint is used to in conjugation with a modified Widman flap or a apically positioned flap is to enhance the tissue placement and adaptation of the tissue during the time of suturing. So basically the osteoplasty is to make sure that tissue adapt to the tooth surface and it forms a normal physiological contour after the surgery. That is the idea of osteoplasty. Osteectomy in conjugation with apically positioned flap or a thinned palatal flap is to eliminate the intrabony defect. The endpoint of osteectomy procedure is to eliminate the intrabony defect. So where we are going to use this surgery? So resective osseous surgery, the most frequent site is treating an intrabony defect or a hemiseptal defect, a shallow intrabony defect where a containment of the graft cannot be happen, or in a hemiseptal defect where most of the bone has been lost, only one part of the bone. In a one wall defect where is only one wall is remaining, all the other three walls are lost, then in such cases we cannot able to contain the defect with a graft material. In such cases, we are going to perform a resective osseous surgery. Other possible areas where we will use a resective osseous surgery is in a pre-prosthetic surgery for crown lengthening procedures. When there is a clinical crown length need to be increased, but the probing pocket depth is very minimal. The bone is in a normal position where we cannot just cut the gingiva alone by gingivectomy. In such cases, we have to perform an apically displaced flap with some bone recontouring to displace the flap apically so that the clinical crown length can be increased. So coming on to the surgical procedure steps. So armamentarium required. The armamentarium required for surgical procedures. As usual, we are going to have a BP blade handles, your periodontal elevators, and additional to your regular surgical instruments, we are going to have a metal or a coarse diamond burr with a high speed or a low speed handpiece, chisel, and files and rongers for cutting the bone. So coming on to the steps, there are 4 steps in resective osseous surgery. The 4 steps are vertical grooving, radicular blending, flattening of interproximal bone, gradualizing marginal bone. So we will see one by one. What is vertical grooving? Vertical grooving, it is designed to reduce the thickness of the alveolar housing and to provide a relatively prominence to the radicular aspect of the teeth. Most of the time, the osteoplasty procedure, this is an osteoplasty procedure where the supporting alveolar bone will not be removed. So this is performed more as a standalone procedure in case of buttressing bone formation. The osteoplastic procedure has been done as a standalone procedure in buttressing bone formation. So vertical grooving and radicular blending are the two osteoplastic procedures. These two goes together. So whenever we do a vertical grooving, we are going to join these grooves to form a blunt. So we are going to join the two grooves to make it flat. That is what radicular blending is. So first we'll make a groove and then we'll join those grooves together to blend it. So the procedure is performed with a carbide burr or a diamond burr, most useful in case with a thick bony margins or a shallow crevices and other areas that requires osteoplasty. It is contraindicated in areas with thin alveolar housing or a close root proximity. So if there is a thin alveolar housing, we will not perform vertical grooving and radicular blending. We will directly go on to the resective procedure, osteectomy procedure, rather than osteoplastic procedure in a thin bony contours architectures. So if it is a buttressing bone formation, then we will perform vertical grooving and radicular blending to reduce the amount of bone on the facial and lingual aspect of the tooth. So the radicular blending, it is the extension of the first step. So we are going to join those grooves which we have created in the first step. We are going to join the grooves by blending the grooves together. So that is what called as radicular blending. The attempt to gradualize the bone over the entire radicular surface to provide a best result with grooving. Its indications are same for vertical grooving. It is not required in case where vertical grooving is minor or where the radicular bone is thin or fenestrated. Vertical grooving and blending are purely a osteoplastic procedure. Next is your osteectomy procedure. We are going to remove the supporting alveolar bone. The third step is your flattening of interproximal bone. We are going to remove the interproximal bone which is supporting the alveolar bone, the supporting alveolar bone. So this requires the removal of small amount of supporting alveolar bone. It is indicated when the level of interproximal bone varies horizontally or indicated in one wall defect or an hemiseptal defect where the other three walls have been already lost, only one wall is hanging. So we are going to cut that wall and make it flat, either flat or into a positive architecture. So after the interproximal bone removal, we are finally going to remove the facial and lingual supporting alveolar bone. So we are going to cut the facial and lingual supporting alveolar bone to the level which is more apical or at the level of the interproximal bone, crest of the interproximal bone, so that to make the contour more physiological contour or a positive architecture or a flat architecture. So the final step is osteectomy procedure is the removal of the facial and lingual supporting alveolar bone. This bone removal is necessary to provide a sound, regular base for the gingival tissue to follow. It is preferably to use an hand instrument like chisel or a curette than rotary instrument to gradualize the marginal bone. So these are the 4 steps in resective osteosurgery. We have seen about vertical grooving where we are going to put vertical grooves. The next step is radicular blending. We are going to join these vertical grooves together to blend the bone to a more physiological contour. Third step is the flattening of interproximal bone where we are going to remove the irregular interproximal bone and make it more flat. And the final step is gradualizing marginal bone where we are going to remove the supporting marginal bone on the facial and lingual aspect so that to make it as equal, either flat in relation to the interproximal bone or more apical to the interproximal bone to produce a positive contour for the flap to be placed and patient can able to maintain the proper oral hygiene. So coming on to the modifications for resective osteosurgeries. So we will not perform all the 4 steps in all the resective procedures. Some procedures requires only osteoplasty or some procedures requires only osteectomy techniques. We are not going to perform all 4 steps in all osseous resective procedures. In case of crown lengthening procedures where clinical crown lengthening is done with apically displaced flap, in such cases we will perform all the 4 steps: the vertical grooving, radicular blending, flattening of interproximal bone, and granulation marginal bone. All 4 steps will be done in case of apically displaced flap for crown lengthening procedure. In some cases, we may not be required to do all 4 steps. For example, in buttressing bone formation, there will not be any bone loss in the interproximal region. So you don't need to remove the interproximal bone, or you are not going to remove the supporting alveolar bone. The idea is to remove only the buttressing or the bone which is excess on the facial or the lingual aspect, so that the bulging has been reduced to produce a proper physiological contour for the tissue to adapt, so that the patient can able to maintain a proper oral hygiene. So coming on to the modifications, there may be a facial or a lingual crater combination, or a funnel shaped craters, lingual or buccal version, or vertical bone loss. So what modification we are going to do? So previously we have seen we are going to remove both interproximal bone and the facial bone for osteectomy procedure. The flattening of interproximal bone and granulation marginal bone both will be done in osteectomy procedure. What if there is only a funnel shaped defect only on the facial aspect? So why we need to remove more bone? There is no need for removal of an interproximal bone, or there is no removal of requirement for removal of lingual bone. So there we are going to modify the technique to remove only the buccal bone. So the facial or lingual crater only be removed with the help of a removal of buccal bone, and recontouring of the bone will be done on the facial aspect only. This is one of the modification of resective osseous surgery. The second resective osseous surgery modification is ramping. When we think about ramping, when there is a minimal bone loss which happens only on the buccal side or only on the lingual side, the interproximal bone loss which happens only on the lingual side or only on the buccal side, there is no point in flattening the entire bone and removing the entire bone. We are going to remove a lot of bone by doing a regular or a osseous resective surgery. Rather than doing a regular surgery, we can remove minimal amount of bone by ramping it either on the buccal or on the lingual side, which is called as lingual version or buccal version. So the bone loss only on the buccal side, you remove only the buccal. So keep the lingual intact, so that it will form a ramp. The crest of the buccal alveolar bone will be more apical compared to the crest of the lingual alveolar bone. So that is what called as ramping. So we are going to ramp the interproximal bone. We are not going to flatten the interproximal bone. Rather than flattening the interproximal bone, we are going to ramp the interproximal bone to remove the intrabony defect. The another modification is, instead of producing a positive architecture, so when we try to produce a positive architecture for a intrabony defect or an angular bone defect, it will result in removal of lot of bone. We have to remove bone from the adjacent tooth, which is normal, where there is no bone loss in the adjacent tooth. A single tooth intrabony defect, when we try to remove a bone, you can see the picture. There is a normal bone which is 3 millimeter high. You are going to remove. So if you want to remove 3 millimeter of bone for the entire region, then it is difficult. Rather than doing that removal of bone for the entire region, we'll remove only to the region where there is bone loss. We'll recontour. We'll change the contour in that region alone, so that very minimal amount of bone will be removed, rather than removing the entire bone by regular osseous resective surgery. That is the idea of the modifications in resective osseous surgery. So I am going to show some clinical pictures of resective surgeries performed. So here you can able to see an intrabony defect between a premolar and the molar. So deep probing pocket depth. After the flap is elevated, you can able to visualize the intrabony defect between the second premolar and the first molar. The picture B shows the intrabony defect in the interproximal regions, which is an one wall intrabony defect. There is no other walls, only the palatal wall is left. Palatal or the lingual wall is left intact. All the other walls have been destroyed. So we are going to resect that and do a resective osseous surgery. So you can able to see the resection. The bone on the or the ledge seen on the lingual aspect has been completely removed and it has been flattened. The final photo after the surgery, you can able to see the amount of exposure, the apical positioned flap compared to the, you can able to see that the bone is flattened and you can able to be recontoured, so that post surgically you can able to see the interproximal gap which is produced. The embrasure is open and the bone has been placed more apical to the position where it is previously, and the pocket is completely eliminated. So the second pictures. So there is an intrabony defect seen between the two molars, two upper molars. You can able to visualize the intrabony defect in the picture B. So the intrabony defect has been flattened. You can able to visualize the flattened interproximal bone in picture C. So the final after the surgical procedure, you can able to see the interproximal open embrasure. Correction of furcation involvement. So you can able to see a bulbous bone in the furcation region. So which is going to help in more food lodgement in that furcation region. So bone loss will happen in the near future. So the bone has been removed. You can able to appreciate the recontouring of the bone done on picture I. You can able to see the recontouring of the bone done. So this is an osteoplasty procedure where the recontouring of the bone has been done. So the use of osseous surgery represents a balance between removing existing tissue and maintaining the remaining tissue. The goal is to establish a contour that is physiological and a positive contour or a flat architecture which the patient can able to maintain a very good oral hygiene for a long-term maintenance. So this is resective osseous surgery. Thank you.